Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're continuing our read-through of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, Book 1 of The Wheel of Time. We're up to Chapter 11, The Road to Taren Ferry. Last chapter, Rand saw a Drahkar in the sky, and Lan and Moiraine and Tom Merrill had heard enough, and they begin racing through the dark. Well, Chapter 11 opens up, and they are still racing. Every so often, Rand would crank his neck behind to see if that massive creature was still flying in the air. And as they're running, he begins to be concerned about Bella, his horse, who's an older horse. And I thought it was interesting, something, again, I'm reading through this for the first time, and I wanted to focus on this, and maybe this is important. With all his heart and desperation, he silently shouted toward the horse. His skin prickled. He silently shouted at Bella to run like the wind, and silently tried to will strength into her. Run! His skin prickled, and his bones felt as if they were freezing, ready to split open. The light helped her run, and Bella ran. It seems like there seems to be some type of reaction physically when Rand desires something really, really strongly. We'll come back to it maybe a little later. But Lan abruptly brings the file of horses to a pause when they see some lights ahead, and it's sort of the next village. It was Watch Hill, and the other members begin to get off of their horses, and they begin to think, well, I'm glad we've come this far. Maybe we can wait for a couple hours, rest the horses, get some food ourselves. They begin to stretch and think about a nice warm bed when Moiraine begins to walk from horse to horse, putting her hands on the horses. And as we know, because we've seen her do this to Tam, she is giving them strength. She is magically healing them or recuperating them. And Rand sort of looks in amazement and says, I didn't know she could do that. Lan scolds him and says, well, you of all people should know since she helped your father, which is true. Rand fell silent, and suddenly the horses tossed their head with their soft whiskers and seemed to be recuperated. Well, she goes over to Bella, and she makes a comment and says, you were right about Bella last chapter, Rand. She has a good heart and as much stubbornness as the rest of you two river folk. Strange as it seems, she may be the least weary of all. And that also drew my mind when I read that, because it seems like Rand's willing helped her be stronger. So I don't know what that means, but he seems to be able to will some energy or will an effect when he wants to. Well, before they got too calm, a scream ripped through the darkness. The Drahkar was back, and Lan shouts for them to mount their horses and says if the Drahkar has announced himself by screaming, it's because he's let the murderer know that we are here. They mount their horses, they begin streaking again, ride, they're galloping and galloping, when all of a sudden fog begins to arise, coming from the ground all around them to where they can barely see the next horse in front of them. And Rand knows this is Moiraine's doing. She is creating this magical fog so that they will not be seen. Rand gets a little uncomfortable. It was one thing knowing that she could do things like this. It was another riding through it and breathing in this magical fog. Well, after a long time of riding, Lan shouts out, slow, draw in your reins. And they slow down, and they have come to where they were going, the road to Taren Ferry, the name of the chapter. And this ferry is what they're trying to get to. Lan dismounts his horse. He goes to a small hut, a small house, and begins pounding on the door. And the door flings open after a while of him pounding on it. And Master Hightower, the man who operates the ferry, Lan said, just the man I need. We want to cross over on your ferry. And the ferryman, he scoffs and says, the ferry doesn't cross until morning. He goes to slam the door when Lan grabs his hand. He begins dropping one gold coin after another into his hands. And this greedy ferryman begins licking his lips. And Lan responds, as much again when we are safely on the other side, but we leave now. And that gold is too much for him to turn away. Lan says, I'll be waiting at the ferry for a little while. Master Hightower jerked his hand of coins to his chest and noddingly agreed, hastily shoved the door closed with his hip to go get some men to help him run the ferry. So they've made it here. This Drahkar is still following them. Lan and Moiraine are leading the party. Rand seems to have some ability to will energy into at least Bella, the horse. And they've made it to this ferry to try to get across. We'll see how the journey continues in the next chapter. Thanks so much for watching. You can like and subscribe. Hope you're enjoying our read through, and we'll look forward to continuing Book 1 of The Wheel of Time in the next video.